Hello, everyone. I'm Gemma Starr, and welcome to another episode of Heart Warriors. Heart Warriors is a series I've been guided and inspired to do thanks to my energetic connection to Kata Judah. Kata Judah is the sacred masculine site in Central Australia, very close to Uluru, our sacred feminine side. And what I'm here to do is to give a platform to our men so they can articulate their journey into the heart. Their highs, their lows, their experiences, what tools, practices did they incorporate into their healing journey? What wisdom, insights, knowledge can they now share with other men walking this journey? And of course, us women who are walking right there beside them. Now, today's guest is a man from Holland, and his name is Bas Waijers Baumann. And Bas is an intimacy, relationship, and love expert. He's also a cellular healer, and he is also a reader of the Gene Keys and human design. And Bas has already thought of a great title for the show, and it is The Holy Trinity of the Integrated Masculine. So really looking forward to hearing about this Holy Trinity and unpacking Bas's journey into the heart. Enjoy. Hello, Bas. Welcome to Heart Warriors. It's my absolute pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I was actually quite honored. I follow you already for quite some time. And the moment you reached out to me and asked if I would be on your next interview, I thought, woohoo, let's do it. I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Likewise, I've been following you and your beautiful wife, Priska, for a few years now as well. And you are an amazing writer. So much beautiful content around men and relationships. So really happy to have you here. And also, I just have to mention that you're living in Hoorn in the Netherlands. Is that correct?
Yeah. True. Yeah. Living in Holland, the Netherlands. Yeah.
And I need to acknowledge that because I had my 21st in Enkhuizen, which is only about, 10-15 kilometers away. So I know Hoorn very well. We used to go shopping there. And I lived in Enkhuizen for about 9 months in total when I was 20, turning 21. So I have beautiful memories of that part of the world and the people there.
Wow. I think that's great because not a lot of people who do not live in Europe even know of Hoorn. It's like this very old town in the north of Holland. So great. And Enkhuizen, I know Enkhuizen very well. It's a beautiful city as well.
Awesome. Well, let's get straight into it, Bas. Let's find out first a bit about you. Now, I like to ask the men, who are you, but without your labels? Who is the man inside?
That's a great question. Who's the man inside? Well, I am a man who has come quite a long way. If I compare myself to even a couple of years ago, I have changed so much. Also, during my adolescence and during growing up into adulthood, there have been a lot of trials and tribulations, but they also created and built the man that I am today. And next to all the hardships, I'm actually very proud and very happy that I have been going through this life with everything that came with it. Because now I can really say that most of the times I can live with an open heart. I can be fully who I am. I love who I am. I know who I am. And yeah, it has been a wild ride, but I'm here to keep going on and to see where I'm going and everything that still will unfold. And yeah, I'm really here for it. So that's a very short summary of who I am today.
This is wonderful because a part of one of the, I guess, the goals of this series is that to let any men watching who are at that point of, like a bit of desperation, or maybe they're not sure which direction their life is going in, that everyone's been through it. And all these men have had a rock bottom moment, all the guests, and they've all risen up. And so, it's a beautiful inspiration. Exactly what you summarized there is the journey of the heart warrior. So awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's get into your childhood then, Boss. What would you say was the significant, what circumstance or issue had the greatest impact on you becoming the man you are today? What did you have to overcome? What challenges?
Well, when I was a child, a little boy, I was incredibly sensitive. And not per se sensitive with my emotions, but sensitive in picking up energies and feeling. I could feel into feelings of other people. So when people that were around me were in pain, I could always feel it, and I didn't have the tools yet to know if it was theirs or mine. So I took it all upon myself. And there never has been like a real relationship with my dad. Like, my parents divorced when I was 8, and then I started living with my mom. And I think, like, I didn't see my dad for such a long time. I think I didn't see him for the first 8 years after they separated. So I think when I was 16, he was slowly coming back into my life. So I didn't have like a role model, a real masculine role model. And I was living with my mom, who after the divorce quite quickly came out of the closet as being a lesbian. And she was not only a lesbian, she was also like very feministic. And she didn't say it with so many words, but in between the lines, I could always read and feel that she thought men are bad, men are oppressors, men are do not treat women well. So these were the things that I took over. And I was a young man growing up in a body, becoming like an adult man. And this really held me back majorly and really hurt me as well, because I, like, as a boy alone living with his mom, I was constantly pleasing her. And this really, this was not a nice place to be in, because I felt in the moment that it was not okay what was happening, but I didn't know how to get out of it, or how to verbalize it, or how to break myself free from that. So it felt quite imprisoned when I was a child, actually, for a long time.
Thank you for sharing that. So, how did you cope with that? And how did you work through that in your teenage years or early adulthood? How did you
Mm.
heal that wound?
Well, first and foremost, before I could even heal it, I had to rebel against it. So when I started studying, I was 17, and then I left home and I started living on my own. And I became a student on this big art academy in Holland, in the Netherlands, where it was all about partying and psychedelic feasts and trying out drugs and drinking. So I really rebelled against everything my mom told me, or not even told me, but energetically put on my shoulders. So I was sleeping around, I was drinking a lot, I was not caring about feelings of other people, especially women. Yeah, I was taking advantage of women, I was taking advantage of friends, I was taking advantage of situations. And I really needed that. And like, now I can say that it really was needed to become who I am. But back then, there was constantly this feeling of shame and guilt, because this also didn't feel like who I was. But I did need it to break free from that stranglehold that my mother had put me in, or that I had her allow me to be in. And then at one point, I read a book by Dan Millman. Now I forgot the title. It's something with the peaceful warrior. I don't know if you know that book. And there was a reference to shamanism, and then I learned more about shamanism, and I found a school in Holland where they gave shamanic teachings. And once I started there, like the healing process started, I really broke through this shame and this guilt and this sadness, which was always under a guise of anger, by showing up, doing ceremonial work, really allowing my feelings to come out in the safe space of people who could hold that. Plus, what also really helped me, and maybe we want to go deeper into that later, when I was in my 30s, I also was diagnosed with lymphatic cancer, stage 4. And it took almost 7 months to get all the cancer out of my system by chemo treatments and stem cell transplantations. And this was such a great initiation for me to finally let go of all the anger that I held, all the sadness, all the taking advantage of, all the guilt, all the shame. Yeah, so that really was the biggest healing that I went through, actually.
Amazing. I imagine there are a lot of women out there who have been maybe in abusive relationships, or, been in relationships with, let's say, wounded masculinity, and ended up as single mums raising sons.
Yes.
And maybe they don't intentionally pass on this negativity of the masculine to their sons. But could you please talk directly to those mothers? Because I know a lot of women watch this as well, and just give them an insight into the impact they might be having raising their sons with their talk about men.
Yes. Okay. I want to tell you, a beautiful mothers, beautiful women. I know where I know where you're coming from, because I also knew where my mother was coming from, and like every parent, or most parents, we only want our children to have the best, to be raised in an environment that's safe, to have also a nice time together when you are in this safe haven of the little family in the house. What is very important, and I'm the living example of that, is that the burdens that you unconsciously place on the shoulders of your sons or your children are logical, and they also come from a wounded place. So what is very important is, when you are a single mom, or when you are a parent, but we are talking about single mothers now, is to always carve out time. Maybe just really schedule in a time in your agenda. Okay, on Friday evening, after the whole week and the kids are in bed, I will sit down. Maybe you can create a little ceremonial space, an altar, and that you go through the week, and that you really look into, okay, where did I put my pain on the shoulders of my children? Where did I not allow them to express who they really were, because of my own woundings, because of my own emotional limitations? And journal about that and write things down. And at one point you will see that you have like a beautiful summary of all kinds of insights, and you can draw new inspiration from that, and create new action plans, and also create these how do you say that, these safe words or smoke alarm words. Then whenever you feel you are going into this loop of, why are you doing that? This is not good. This is my pain that I'm putting on you now. Whenever you sense that in your body, when that's happening, that you somehow have like a smoke alarm or a safe word, that you can speak that out and literally bring yourself back into the space of, okay, I need to realign again. I need to feel what I want. I need to ask what my kids want, so that we can come to an understanding again where both of us feel seen, heard, loved, held. But I understand where it's coming from, because again, my mother also has had her fair share of shit sandwiches during her life. But it's really about getting aware of these experiences and where and when we put them on the shoulders of our kids. So that would be my advice, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, Bas. And I raised two sons alone, and I was super aware of all this. And I always had in my mind, you only ever get one chance to raise your children. So, you want to, I mean, no one's perfect, but you want to have no regrets. It's like, oh, just do the best you can. Anyway, that was great advice. Thank you for that. Now, you've touched on a few things already going through into adulthood, but what would you say was your rock bottom moment?
My rock bottom moment was after a party when I was living on my own. Sorry, I have something in my throat. But when I was living on my own and I was in this party sphere and constantly going from party to party, that at one morning I woke up in a place where I thought, I don't know where I am. I don't know how I came here. I felt miserable and I could not put my finger on why I felt so miserable. I felt miserably emotionally, physically, mentally. When I wanted to get up, I could not move my body anymore. And that was not because of, I don't know, the effects of drugs or alcohol. I knew this was literally my body saying, no, you cannot go further like this. I do not allow you to go further like this. And then I was picked up by the girlfriend that I had back then, and she took me to her house, and I crashed down in her bed, and I think I slept for 2 weeks. I couldn't do anything anymore. She was like taking care of me, bringing me things that I needed, and I had to cry so much and so hard. And I really, because we know of the phrase, I have had moments that I lost who I was, or I didn't know who I was anymore. But in this moment, I literally did not know who I was. I did not know what my name was even. I did not know about my past anymore, about a possible future. So I was really stuck in this vacuum and really paralyzed, not only in the metaphorical way, but literally paralyzed, with fear and yeah. So this was the moment where I knew I cannot go on like this anymore. Something has to happen. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow, that's quite a story. How old were you when this happened?
I would say I was around 19, 20-ish, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so was that before the cancer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what what was it that drove you to start spiraling up after a couple of weeks? What got you out of bed in the end and started clearing, giving you a bit of clarity or direction or drive or motivation? What was that?
Well, first and foremost, my back then girlfriend, the conversations I had with her, finally, when I was able to think again and talk again. And what she said, and that was such an eye opener, such an heart opener for me, is what she said. She said, you are constantly adapting yourself to the people around you. When you were living with your mom, you were constantly adapting to her needs. In the relationship with me, you also are constantly adapting to my needs. And I actually don't know who you are. Who is Bas? Where does he come from? What are his feelings? What are his fears? What are his dreams and goals? And then it was mind-blowing, because I started with defending myself, but on a very deep level, I knew, oh, this woman is so incredibly right. I have lived my life without defining who I was as Bas, but also as a human, and especially also as a man, because I was subscribing to the vision my mother had of man. Later, I was rebelling against that, and I was subscribing to all the characteristics of performative masculinity. And I really, had not lost myself. I never had found myself, actually. And this really struck me on a soul level, and that was really the starting point for me spiraling up again. And again, of course, this went with falling down and getting up again, and falling deeper and getting up again. But this was really the start of me slowly, very slowly spiraling up again. Yeah.
And I love how you said it is a bit of a yo-yo, isn't it? And that spiral is sort of, sometimes very wide and can dip down and up. It's not a straight direction, the spiral up.
Nope.
So let's get further into this, Bas. Redefining yourself, not in the words of your mother or your girlfriends or your rebellious self. How did that journey come about? What led you to find the Bas we know today?
Mm. Well, it has been going in steps. Like the one of the finals. Well, that was not even the final step. One of the big steps was me getting cancer and really revising everything that I had been going through, redefining what I want, also letting go of the last parts of anger, because I was a very angry man, all the time, even till the point that I got cancer. And then that was really for me the point that I knew that I really needed to address that. But it started when I was how old was I then? 25, 26. I was finished with my study, and then I went to Israel for a year. I started out because I knew a Dutch guy, and he was married to a Palestinian woman, and they had 2 kids, and maybe they wanted to come back to Holland, and they wanted their kids to learn Dutch. So I came there as some sort of a Dutch teacher or a nanny or whatever. But then soon we discovered that there was not a click between me and that family. So in the meantime, I had got to know other Palestinian family, and they had a place where I could live. So then I started to organize drama workshops in a Palestinian refugee camp near Bethlehem. And that was so beautiful, because like Palestine or Israel, but especially also the Palestinian part, there is so much suppression, so much war, so much angst, so much anxiousness, constantly being on alert. And when I started working with the Palestinians, like the guys that I met, the Palestinian guys, they had this beautiful balance between spine, between getting into action when needed, but also this beautiful softness. They really could connect to their emotions in such a beautiful way, and they really were inspirational for me. And I also, when I was working with them, I was like seen as the leader, like the teacher, but I learned so much more from them about, and not because I subscribed again to something new, but this really felt like coming home. It felt like my soul started to sing when I saw these guys interacting, knowing when something happened that they had to get into this, okay, we need to get into action, but also knowing when to lean back, to receive, to be more connected to their, let's call it femininity, or feminine energy. And this, for me, was really an eye-opener and a heart opener, and really taught me that I had constantly picked like an area where I lived from, or it was the head, or it was only the heart, or it was only the balls. And this was for me really the eye-opener, that I had to start living and loving from these three things connected. Yeah, so then I started to doing more work on that, reading, doing workshops, meditating, doing more shamanic work, hanging out with men without placing myself above them or under them, but really started to interact with them as equals. And this really was the big healing work of being able to redefining who I actually, literally, authentically was as a man. Yeah.
Such a great story. And this leads us into the title that you chose for Heart Warriors, which is the Holy Trinity. And I know it's something I've spoken about too. And I think in the sort of when I send the invite to the men for the Heart Warriors, you know, I say it's time for our men to rise, heart and spine. But I didn't put in balls, but I love how you put in balls, because actually I totally agree. So first of all, can you please give us your definition of integrated masculinity? Because it's thrown around a lot. And let's just hear from your definition of what is integrated masculinity.
Yeah. Well, if I say it incredibly easily, and I will elaborate on that, then it's just how to keep the connection between mind, heart, and balls, or guts, or sex, or whatever you want to call it, open at all times, being aware when it doesn't flow, being aware when it needs a bit more interaction with certain parts within yourself. For me, for example, men who only live from their hearts, they are really stuck knee deep in concrete, because they live from the collarbone up. Their actual voice is hidden or stuck behind their larynx, and it's so because the mind is a beautiful thing, and like most of us men, we are solution focused, and it's beautiful that we are able to do that. So use it when you have a problem, solve it. When you have a beautiful intellectual conversation, use your beautiful mind, but also know when to put it away or when to tone it down a bit. Because what is life without without butterfly storms? What is life without falling up and crawling up again? The wide array of all the emotions that it has, then it becomes so empty. And so therefore, I think it's so incredibly important to always honor the mind, because it's also not the case of saying, yeah, like you have people who say, do you make mostly decisions from the mind or from the heart? And then I say, no, it's not about that. It's about the combination. It's about both working together. It's team. It's teamwork. Also, like guys who only live from the heart, they are, for me, that's how I see it. They are like the typical Mr. Nice guys, the pleasers, constantly tuning into if they do not upset other people, because first and foremost, they don't want to upset themselves. Also, like often guys who are focused on the heart, on the emotions, they also pick certain emotions that they are easy with, and the more complex emotions they somehow push away, like the darker emotions, because they also do not know how to deal with that. Because to be able to also go into the darker emotions, you also need the energy of the balls. Like the balls are Shamanically, for example, they are connected to the underworlds, to the shamanic underworld. That's where the shadows live, but also the drive. Like the archetype of the bulls is the wild man with the club who just beats around him, who's very connected to nature. And if you are not able to connect to that part, the heart will also stay in a sort of surface level, and you will not be able to really go deep into these emotions that matter. And if you only live from the balls, yeah, then you are like a guy who just fucks around and doesn't care about women, doesn't care about your own inner feminine. Is totally about control, and also needs to control only from his shadows. Is constantly in this power struggle with the guys around him, but also with women around him. And for me, an integrated masculine is really when these three areas work together. And the spine, I also want to bring the spine in, because the spine is very important. Like you have the mind, you have the heart, and you have the balls, and they are connected through the spine. Oh, now I'm stuck in my pen. They are connected. They connect these three areas beautifully. And I think everybody knows also that through the spines, through our spines, a lot of meridians go. So that's also where the flow happens, and where a part of the feminine is also in. But the spine, of course, is a very erected masculine symbol. Yeah, so then it becomes this beautiful loop: the spine, mind, heart, balls. And I think also, like an exercise that you can do if you want to keep the flow going on through these three areas, is really also do the circular movements, like in through the front and back through the spine and out again. This is always what helps me. So
Is that like a breathwork exercise? Do you do it which way, which direction do you do it in? Does it matter?
it depends on if I want to be more in my strength. Then I breathe in and I envision that the breath goes through the spine down and then up again. And when I want to be more in a soft place or more in an open place, then I do it the other way around. And it also has to do with giving or receiving. Like, for example, we receive love through the back of our hearts, and we give love through the front of our hearts. So when I want to give more, then I do it front back, and when I want to receive love, then I do it the other way around.
Oh, fascinating. And do you do it through your nose or your mouth?
I mostly breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the mouth. Yeah.
Great exercise. Love it. Boss, what would you say were your three highest values as a man?
That's a good one. I never, which is strange maybe, but I never have thought about the three values. But the first thing that comes to mind is freedom. And with that, I mean freedom in a certain framework. Because, like, I am married, I have two kids, I have two dogs, I have a business. So within these frames that I have to do, that belongs to my life, within these frames, I want to create a sense or a feeling that I'm free to make choices, free to show up how I want to, free to express my emotions, but also free to sometimes say, no, I don't want to have this talk now, or I don't want to go into these emotions now because I don't feel like it, or I don't have time for it, or I just choose actively to not participate in these emotions now. That to me is freedom. It's not, it doesn't have to be like just doing whatever you want to do all the time without regard of the people around you. So freedom is a very important one for me. Another one is being of service, or servitude. I don't know how you can say that in one word. Servitude, maybe. And that's like a very wise array. Like, first and foremost, servitude toward myself, because if I don't know who I am, if I don't know what my shadows are, if I don't know what I want, I can also not give the people around me what they need. But also servitude to my inner masculine, to my inner feminine, to my wife, to my children, to my clients, to my neighbors, to all the people that I meet. And servitude does not equal, and I always thought it was, and that's why I never did it. But I always thought that servitude equaled putting yourself away, making yourself invisible. But now I know that servitude only can happen when you are like, bam, this is me. Standing with your feet firmly onto the ground, with an erect spine, with your chest open. And then it just flows. And in this servitude, you also get so much beautiful energy back from nature, from people, from yourself. So that's the second one: freedom, servitude. And the last one is, I would say, just love. I think the world can only be healed, or can only develop in a more open, positive, beautiful way if we come from love. And I know we are not there yet, because, like, as everybody knows, a lot is going on in the world right now, and a lot of things are coming up. We learn so much things about the people who we thought we could trust, like the government, like the media. So it's a time where people might feel very anxious and very unsafe. And for me, I only think that we can go through that if there is love towards self, love towards different people with different opinions, but also people who we think do not deserve love. I think if we bombard them with love, and this might sound like spiritually bypassing or whatever, but I truly believe if we bombard these people with love, then at one point there will also be this shift. And I'm not sure if this is going to happen in this lifetime where I am still alive, but I think as a collective, if we are able to work collectively towards that love, then I think we will come a far way. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Now, you're a love, a relationship, and intimacy expert, mentor. So, really keen now to get into masculine and feminine energies. And
Mm.
the way I think of it, and you may agree or may not agree, is first there is the balance and harmony within oneself, then within relationship, then within community and the world. Would you like to give us an insight into your understanding of harmonics with the masculine and feminine within those four categories?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I fully agree that it starts within ourselves. And what I have learned more and more, also because of, I don't know if you're into that, human design and gene keys. Like, I always had a quite limited idea of how polarity would work, about feminine, masculine. But since I'm working with human design and the gene keys, I also realized there are like 64, because you have 64 hexagrams or gene keys, there are 64 modalities of masculine, feminine polarity, or how it works together. So there is not one cookie cutter answer to, okay, this is masculine, this is feminine, this is how it works together. So I think I lean back more and just observe all the scenarios that can be, instead of saying this is the masculine, and if you want to rise up more in your masculine, you have to do X, Y, Z. What I do believe is that the balance is very important, and that doesn't mean that it always has to be 50-50. But I think balance between the inner feminine and the inner masculine, and for me the inner feminine in a nutshell is more about being in flow, birthing feelings, birthing ideas, also being nurturing, but not only this soft idea of femininity, also the wild one, where you can break through emotional barriers, where you can create. And the masculine is then, if the ideas or the emotions are birthed, is then the energy that takes it over, that leads it, that holds it, that forms it, that organizes it, that brings it more into the world, that structurizes it, that also creates more of a balance there. And I think if these things are in balance within ourselves, and we can also translate that into the outer world, into our love relationships, which doesn't always mean that I, as a guy who is more in his masculine, that I should constantly hold space, structurize, organize, bring into the world. Because I also have my moments where I just want to lay down, put my head on the knees of my wife, and just want to be stroked over my head, or want to cry, or want to surrender to the fact that I don't know what to do, what the next step is. But with knowledge of how it works inside, I also fully believe that the knowledge about how you want to present it in the world around you will come naturally. Like I always feel in my relationship with my wife when I am, for example, too much in my feminine, and she, as a result of that, is too much in her masculine. And I also see it as my responsibility to create that balance again, or to allow a space where she can be more in her feminine. Because what I used to do was always say, yeah, you are always in your masculine, and I have the feeling that I cannot step up there, but I really see it as my responsibility. If she is too much in her masculine, then I have to rise up more in my masculine. And then as a result, because the universe always strives for this balance, she will flow back into her feminine again. So like,
I love that.
inside relationship, what were the other two areas? Community. Yeah. Well, community, if I look at myself, for example, it's also about showing up. For example, let's take Facebook as a community. Like I am a men's mentor, I am a relationship and intimacy expert. And also there, the leadership, I can only lead for my masculine if I am also able to share things about my vulnerable side. Like in the end, it's all about the balance. Like if I would be, and of course there are men who call themselves alpha men, and who their goal is to build strong men, who are constantly with erect spines, and who are constantly leading, who will constantly lead their women. That's not who I am, and that's not what I believe, because I really believe it's always about the balance, always about looking for the balance. Because balance also creates safety. If I would be constantly in my masculine and constantly about, for example, coming from my balls and being in this control vibe based on my shadows, then I will feel unsafe for the people around me. And I really believe that this balance also creates safety for the community, so that they can also feel, okay, with this guy, I can open up. Sometimes I can lean back, sometimes I can lean forward to come with my maybe more masculine approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Bas. And I must say that you and Priska are so real and raw and authentic in your, sharing of your posts and, your relationships. So I totally love where you're coming from. And I'm not into gene keys or human design personally, but I loved what you said about the 64 gene keys and each having a different harmonic between the masculine and feminine. Because one thing I found with this series is, and your number 52, is that
Mhm.
every man is different. And so within the broad spectrum of healthy masculinity, we've got so many different men, and some see themselves in that, always in that being 90% masculine, and some are more into the 60-40, without saying a percentage, but you can
Mhm.
sort of see. And the shift also, sometimes they're 90% in their masculine, sometimes they might be only 20 or 30%. But I love this, and what you said about the cookie cutter image of masculinity has to be smashed for men to
Yeah.
heal. And from what I've learned through interviewing these heart warriors is that the way to do it is for men to come into their authenticity, which is exactly what you did, and find out from that authentic space exactly what feels right for each man. Would you agree?
Yeah. That's so, yeah, spot on. That's really what it's about, because like I love simplicity, and I can talk for hours about certain topics, but in the end it's about also daring to verbalize something in a very simple way that people think, ah, damn, this is what it's about. Thank you. Um, like uh, I see beautiful people on Facebook who have the gift of teaching, and who can write incredibly long posts about how it works between men and women. And I love to read it because it also teaches me certain things. But no, and in the end, it it it's about getting the message across. And it's really what you say, the message is just be fucking authentic. And how that looks like, it doesn't matter. Like, you have alpha man, you have sigma man, you have omega man, you have beta man. Who the fuck cares? Give me the men who know about their shadows, who know how to dance with their shadows. Give me the men who are devoted to the women in their life because they are connected to their own inner feminine. Give me the man who can stand their ground, but also the man who can break down, and who can show up vulnerably. This is like we have been taught so much to wear a mask, or to put ourselves in the man box to survive, and it's literally stored in our DNA. I know boys who are raised up by the most free-spirited, non-gender specific parents, and still they have moments where they are in this man box because of shame. Because, like, historically, if we would show vulnerability, we would have been thrown out of the tribe, and this is still in our DNA. So it's beautiful to be aware of that, and to also, like, stretch up the comfort zone. I always say stretch up, because stepping out sometimes it's too harsh for the nervous system. So first you have to stretch it up a bit until you feel safe again, and then you might want to step out. And to just explore new ways of being a man in this world. Yeah,
Yeah.
I fully agree with you.
Yeah, I like to say sitting on the edge of your comfort zone, are you going to are you going to take that next step, or are you just going to sit
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Oh, that's great, Boss. So you said you've got a couple of children. How is your relationship with them now as a have you got boys or girls?
Okay, I have two boys, and one of them was assigned female at birth. So he defines as a boy. So yeah, I have two boys. Let's keep it there. Yeah.
Is it okay for me to continuing the questioning around your children?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, this is going in a whole new direction. So, how was that experience for you when your daughter decided that she was actually felt more comfortable? How old is he now?
He's now 17.
Okay.
And it started about 3 years ago. Um, he is like what I read a lot since then about these kind of things, and what I often hear is that there's such a pain of being in the wrong body, and of wanting to transition. And with him it's not like that. Like he is not appalled of his own body. He also does not per se want to go for the whole transition with hormones and operations and stuff. He just, it's more that he now defines more as a boy. But in the end, I think what his message is that he doesn't want to identify or define at all. Like sometimes he's more, also you see it in how the clothes that he, sometimes he's more feminine, sometimes he's more masculine. But to come back to your question, how this was for me, well, the biggest part actually was that I was very sad, because I always loved being a dad of a daughter and a son. And all of a sudden, even though that the body that I hug still feels and looks feminine, like in my head, I know it's not like that anymore. It's different. So I really had to mourn about that. I really had to mourn and say goodbye to him being a her. But we are very open. We have lots of conversations. There's so much love in our house. Like my oldest is 70 now, and it's still like I have a 50-50% co-parenthood with their mother. So the weeks that they are with me, still when they go to bed, I always come and lie with them, and we hug and we share how the day was, and like, so when it comes to that, nothing changed. It was just the idea that I had in my head about, okay, this is a girl. This made it like hard for me in the beginning, but now it's just my child in the end. And I don't have so much problems anymore there.
Beautiful. And I guess being in Holland, relative, very open-minded there. So I guess that makes it easier for your son. So
That's true.
you treat your sons both the same now, and you being a masculine mentor and so aware of masculinity, do you well, obviously with the 17-year-old, you're letting him find his authenticity. Do they ask you for advice on masculinity? How is the relationship between your two sons and you as a men's coach?
Yeah, beautiful question. They do not ask me like directly about like what it is to be a man or how they should decide certain things, but it's more, I think, what especially in my younger son, what I see is that he observes a lot. So he really observes my behavior, and whenever he sees something that he likes, I see that he also like integrates it and translates it in his own expression of that. But for example, when it comes to sexuality and to these kind of things, they are very open, and they ask me everything also about like sexual feelings, about having erections, about masturbation. Like we are very open, and they also feel safe enough to ask me these questions. So it's more like that I just walk the talk, and that they just observe, and then I all of a sudden see that they start doing certain things in their own way. Yeah, so it's not about literally asking, but more about observing and then taking over ish.
I was going to pause a moment, check my computer's plugged in. Sorry. Lucky I noticed that. Okay. Oh, that's great. Really fascinating insights there around your two sons. So how does the one that was born a boy interact with your other son?
Yeah. Since that my other son defines as masculine, in the beginning, what I noticed was that the younger one was creating a little bit more of distance, not because he thought it was strange, but more because he didn't know what was exactly happening. He was, of course, 3 years back, he was also only 11, or 10 still, going towards 11. So for him, it was, okay, what's exactly happening there? Not from a place of, I don't like what I see, or I don't want to be in that energy, but more about, okay, the same as what I had, like having an idea of having a sister, and then all of a sudden it's not a sister anymore. And what I see now is that they actually hang out in exactly the same way as they did before. Of course, they are now more teenagers, and they have a very beautiful connections. They do not do so much together, like they both have really their own circle of friends. But when they are together in the house, like they also hug, and they also have the same kind of humor, so they laugh together. And yeah, I don't see a difference so much in that he now starts interacting with his older brother differently because he all of a sudden is a boy. I don't see so much difference there. It's actually the same. Yeah.
Great. And I must take this opportunity for you to speak directly to parents who have children going through transition. And I know, I mean, there is concern that it is being pushed through an agenda, through schooling, especially in America. From what it sounds like, your son, with him not going through the surgery or hormone treatment, I mean, I guess he has the option at some other point to, you know, reverse it, whatever. Can you please, I don't know much about it, so can you please speak to parents of children who might be going through this transition? What can you say to them?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is because in Holland, it's like that you cannot go in transition or into hormone treatment before a certain age. I think, like, my son is on a waiting list for a hospital in Holland that is specialized in gender things. Um, um, and I think he will be, it will be his turn when he's like 18 or 19. And this is more because he just wants to talk about it with people who are specialized, not because and maybe it will change. Maybe if he grows older, he all of a sudden thinks, well, I think I would love to be more in a masculine body. But in Holland, it's not allowed to do that before a certain age. And what I heard of America, and I don't know how it's in Australia, is that like sometimes already children from 14 years old can start with hormone treatment. And well, I think this is, yeah, my advice would be, don't start with it too early on, because children are still in development. Brains are in development till 21 onwards. And I also have heard many stories about kids that started too early, and that at one point they thought, oh, it was actually not the choice that I wanted to make. And then the whole transition back is it's just confusing, and it's also not good for the body. And of course, taking hormones, we don't know what kind of influence it will have on development on the body later on. So I would always suggest to allow them to explore, allow them to find out who they are, to define who they are. But when it really comes to the actual transition and hormones and operations, I would really keep that on hold. And if you want to do that, really go into this whole assessment with professional people, with therapists and psychologists who are specialized in this, so that you really get all the information, or your child, that they really can get all the information that they need to make a decision, because it's a decision for life mostly, and really take that into account. Really go for the slow path, and in the end, at home, yeah, it's really about having conversations with your child, always giving them the feeling that they are safe to express, even if you do not always agree with them. And you are also allowed to share your sorrow or your worries, as long as you do not muzzle them with it, because it's so important for them to being allowed to speak about their feelings, to speak about their fears, about their sadness, about their pain. So it's really about holding space, and also sharing your perspectives there. I think that's the most important advice that I would like to give. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Boss, we've got about half an hour left. Now, from your range of experience in so many areas, what needs to be brought into this conversation that you can give to other men on their healing journey?
Well, what I really, and we already touched on that, and I'm going to repeat it because it's so incredibly important, is to find out who you are as a man. And of course, you can read about stuff. Of course, you can be inspired by stuff, but it's always about tuning in with yourself. And what we as a society, but especially as men, have lost is really being aware about the senses that our bodies give off. Like, I had so much emotions going on when I was younger, but I didn't know how they felt. I didn't know how they physically felt. Or I could not really define them. They were like too fleety, is that a word? Like
Fleeting, yes.
Fleeting, thank you. And I could not grasp them, and because of that, I just lived on and did not listen to the signs. And I think we have to come back to that we are able to listen to the signs. With the work that I do together with my wife, with like the relationship, love, and intimacy work, I mostly do together with my wife. We also work with couples. And what I often hear is that also women, but we're talking about men now, that men do not feel whenever it's a no, whenever they get angry, whenever they get irritated, whenever they start to create this defense and attack dynamics, because they are not connected to the sensations in their body. So it's really about bringing them back, slowing down, learning by sitting with themselves in certain situations. So whenever you have an argument with your wife, just say, okay, I'm going to step out of it because I want to feel what's happening with it in my body. And once I know these kind of things, it will benefit our relationship. So I'm not stepping out because I don't want to have this conversation with you. I want to step out because I want to learn more about the mechanics that the mechanisms that happen within my body. If you're able to do that and sense the actual sensation when you feel angry, okay, there's a stingy feeling on the left side of my chest. Shame, okay, I feel it burning in my throat. And sadness, oh, I feel this awkward bubbly feeling in my stomach. When you can become aware of these things, you are also, when you are in certain situations, able to pick up on these emotions and that's where the mind comes up. No, okay, I'm going in that rabbit hole again, or I'm there again. And then with compassion, not with like, oh, you stupid asshole, you do it again, but really, okay, I catch myself, I do it again. And then you can bring yourself back more into alignment, bring yourself back more into connection with your wife or your kid or with whomever you're having a conversation in that point. So it's really about getting to know our bodies on in a better way, and learning to anticipate on the signals that it gives off in certain situations. Yeah, I think this is one of the most, this is also the focal point of the work that I do. It's like we can talk a lot, and talking helps to get things clear, but it's really about embodiment. It's really about, okay, what do you feel now? What is happening right now? How does that need to be expressed? Can you look your wife in the eyes, or can you look your brother in the eyes and speak out what is happening there? And I think that's where the gold lies, and that's what we need to learn as men. Yeah.
Oh, I love this about men and feeling and emotions, because so many men were taught to suppress their feelings and emotions, especially the softer, well, what we would describe as, sadness or vulnerability, or even anger. So
Yeah.
when men are feeling these strong emotions, whatever it might be, anger, shame, guilt, how do you suggest that they release them, or how do they process these emotions?
Mm. Well, first, what I always think is find a way that honors you and your emotion, and preferably also the people that are in your surrounding in the moment. So instead of turning into a berserker and screaming in the face of your wife, okay, also feel into what she would need, or what she cannot handle in that moment. But I think honest expression is always important. So what I always do is when I feel already that it's a big emotion, I always bring in a pause, and then I withdraw, not in my man cave. I withdraw in a space where I feel safe to express. And if it's anger, then I just allow it to come out in whatever form. And mostly when it's really, really like frustration, or really this big anger, it goes with screaming, with hitting, with shouting and stomping, and but also with sadness, for example. What I have learned within myself, but also what I heard of many men, is that they have a hard time to connect with their sadness. And what mostly happens is that they feel annoyed, that they feel frustrated, or that they feel angry. Anger often is the more safe go-to emotion for men than directly going to the sadness. But anger is also 100% always a secondary emotion that cloaks the sadness or the grief or the pain. And like the anger, the expression of the anger is a very masculine approach, and the reaching the sadness beneath that is more of a feminine approach. So I have had many situations where I was so angry. There was one situation that I totally snapped. I went into the kitchen and I started banging at the door of a kitchen cabinet. And what happened, that was beautiful, and that taught me a lot, was that Priska then came to the kitchen, and the only thing she did was putting her hand on my heart and just standing there. And that was the moment when I could sink into the sadness, and I started sobbing and all the pain came out. And this was for me a beautiful example of exactly the masculine and the feminine, because you can also do that for yourself. Whenever I am in this, oh, I want to destroy and kill someone, and in this anger, what really helps me is to slow down, breathe down, put my hand on my heart, and then poof. Most of the times it just happens. It just happens to reach this pain that is underneath there. So for the men who are often in this frustrated, annoyed, angry space, this might help. You can literally ask, if you have a wife, you can literally ask her if she can do that for you, if that feels safe enough for her, of course. But you can also do that for yourself. And also guilt or shame, it's really also about expressing it, because we guys are not, we have not learned to speak about emotions, to speak when we feel vulnerable. Especially shame and guilt are such loaded topics. And I think it's so important if you can speak about that. Like, I have one of my best friends, who is also called Bas, by the way. I don't see him that often because we have busy lives, but what we do is that we speak voice messages on WhatsApp. And then I don't have to speak to him, only me recording a voice message for him where I say, oh, I feel so fucked, and I hate this. And this already helps. Or expressing that I feel ashamed about something. This already helps to get it off, literally get it off my heart, put it into a space, knowing that somebody will witness it. And this already takes like 75% of the emotion away, without suppressing it, but just because I allow it to be seen by myself and by another person. Wow, how cool is that? And then it loses its power for 70%, 75% of the time. And I think it's also about trying out, because we haven't done that as a collective, man. We haven't done that so often. And it's really about trying out, sitting on the edge of the comfort zone, stretching it up, sometimes going over it, and just trying it out. Also be brave there, because 9 out of 10 times whenever you share this, people will love that you do that, because then they also feel the safety and the openness to do it with you if they feel fucked up or feel that they need to share something.
Yeah, because it takes courage, right? Especially if it's done in a space of respect for the people around you. You know, it takes courage, and courage comes from the heart. So that's beautiful that you brought the heart into that, and what
Yeah.
Priska did that time.
Mm.
I wanted to ask you, as a relationship expert, what would be your 3 tips for men in regards to understanding women?
My 3 tips for men in regards to understanding women. Well, one of them is to always come from a place of curiosity, because, which is logical, and I also do that sometimes, we tend to think that we know how our partner works, how our wives or women work. Whenever situation A happens, she will react in this kind of manner. Whenever that happens, this will happen. When she's angry, she always expresses it like that. But we are constantly in development. Our women are constantly in development. They pick up so much, which does something internally. which can fully change a certain expression. So it's like curiosity is really the number one thing that I always share with guys, also with women, but especially for guys. Be curious. Why does she say that? Why does she express it in such a way? And instead of feeling attacked or feeling, oh, I'm not enough, she thinks that I'm doing stuff to hurt her or whatever, to just ask yourself, okay, where does this come? Also ask her, okay, I hear you, and why did you bring this into the space? What do you want me to know? How can I what kind of questions can I ask to help you better come to a point, or to express in a safer way for yourself? And I think this is like this is always on top of my top three, like curiosity. Curiosity really is key, because we tend to overthink, and in this overthinking we create certain images based on our own stories, based on our own feelings, based on our own experiences, and this is mostly not what is actually happening in that moment. So it's about curiosity and also staying in the moment, being present, and being present as in, it's not about then, it's not about there, it's about here. What is happening here? And I also say that because that is also connected to what we already talked about, okay, tune in into your feelings and sensations now. What is happening now? Maybe you reacted in a totally different way three days ago, but that's okay, because every situation is differently, every emotion is differently. With every thing that happens, another particle of your hurt, your pain, your anger, your understanding will come up. And if you are able to stay in the present and tap into that flow, into that feeling, into that sensation, you can also bring it into the space and create a whole new direction of where a conversation might go into. So that's another one, curiosity, presence, or being present. And the last one is trying to be as safe as possible. And what is very important to be safe is that you know of your own shadows, that you know how to deal and dance with your own shadows. Because if you don't know about your shadows, if you somehow unconsciously constantly suppress them, your wife will feel that they are there. And if she senses that you do not have the responsibility or the capability to handle them, she unconsciously also has the feeling that she has to do something with it, that she has to deal with it, that she has to bring you towards these shadows, and it will feel unsafe for her, because it's another thing that she has to feel that she has to do for you, for the relationship. So the moment that she knows, I can trust him fully with his shadows, I can trust him fully with his boundaries, with his nose whenever he's sad, and he doesn't feel like he wants to talk, I can tell him, I trust that you will reach the other end again, that you will deal with it. This will create so much safety for her. So yeah, these are the three things: curiosity, being present, and creating safety.
Wonderful. And well, let's talk about what do men wish that women understood better about men?
That's also a beautiful question. Well, what I think, based on the experiences is working with couples, but also myself and my relationship with Priska, is what I would love to understand women more is that we do deal with our emotions, we do the work, but we do it differently than women. We have a more masculine approach, so we act through our masculine filter. And women, the advice that I want to give is whenever you have the feeling that your man is not doing
frozen.
good.
Froze for a moment. So we were talking about whenever you get the feeling that your man is.
Yeah, whenever you have the feeling that your man is not doing the work or not being emotional enough, try to put away your feminine filter and really see what is happening in the moment, and also try to focus on the things that you might not pick up on. What do you not see? How can you as a woman support your man more in him feeling safe to express in a better way? Because what I often see and hear is that women say, my man never talks, my man doesn't know how to deal with emotions, my man does not process. And 9 out of 10 times this is not true. Whenever Priska and I work with couples, but also the women, are astounded about the depth, the emotional depth that most men are able to go into once they have the space. And to create this space, it's also important that, for example, when you are in a conversation and your man shares, what men often do is they talk and then they stop again. And in this pause, they process a little bit more. And then they start talking again. And what often women do, of course, I'm generalizing here, is that whenever there's a pause, they start filling it in with questions, with sharing their own story, with they fill up the void, and then a man is immediately out of his line or his process of sharing. So as a woman, what you can do is just let your man speak, and whenever he stops, like, just be silent for 30 seconds, and I can tell you 9 out of 10 times, within 20 or maybe 15 seconds, he starts speaking again. But if you take over and if you try to lead him into a certain direction, often the conversation will be over. So it's really about being in your feminine and leaning back and just receive what is happening. And also do not fear the pauses, because that's when we really process and come up with a deeper layer. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I would say to women. Please be more aware about that. Be more aware about those patterns. Also, when a man withdraws into his man cave, that's not because he doesn't want to deal with it anymore. It's because he doesn't know in the moment how to react on it. Too much things are happening within our heads. It can create some sort of a shortcut, and they have to go back and have the space to, okay, what is happening here? Why did I feel that way? Why did I make that remark? And instead of what you then as a woman can do best is just put a little pot of honey outside of the man cave instead of a pot of acid or vitriol or whatever. Because this also gives us the opportunity and the desire to come back to you. Yeah, I think that's it for now. The things that I would love women to know more of.
I'm practicing the 30 seconds. And I really okay, let's move on. And I noticed even as you were talking, there was a point that I thought you'd finished, and I went to say something and you hadn't, and I'm like, oh my God, you're actually not doing what Bas's advice is to do. So I'm very aware of that, and I love that advice. That's great advice. Thank you. I will start wrapping up now, Bas. So I'd like you to let everyone know where they can find you, what services you offer, and of course, we will drop all the links in the description below. And once you've done that, if you could just give a final message to men feel free to say whatever else needs to be said.
Yep. Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Well, what I already said is the relationship, love, and intimacy work I do together with my wife. We are called the Love Alchemists. We have our personal pages on Facebook. We also have a group and a professional page. The group is called the Soulmate Society, and the page is called the Love Alchemists. We also have our website, which is called thelovealchemists.com. Very easy. And we are also on Instagram, personal and business-like. What I offer is in 2 months, like the end of March, I will start my new 2-month container called Trinity, which is a program for men, an online program for men who want to do everything that we talked about, but mainly you want to live and love from this merging of the head, the heart, and the balls. So this is going to happen in March. Very excited about that. And what we also still do is we coach couples. I also coach men individually. We also do, if you are interested in gene keys and human design, we also do human design and gene keys readings and healings. We also do long distance healings. And that's it. That's what we, in a nutshell, what we are doing. But you can look at our website and there you will find everything actually that we do, that we offer. We also have a lot of masterclasses in the shop that you can look into. So there's a lot to see there, to find there.
It's great. And of course, you write such beautiful posts on Facebook as well. So definitely follow Bas, send him a friend request. All right, final message to men, and whatever else needs to be said, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, as I said already before, I love simplicity. So my final message is going to be be authentic, tap into your core. And I know this sounds abstract, but really try to find your core. And your core to me is, who am I? Who am I in this world? Who am I for myself? Who am I for my possible or potential partner? Who am I in this community? Who do I want to be? And instead of creating something based on an image that you have in your head, like, oh, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be, which is beautiful, to also tap into yourself, because it's important to feel if this is true to you. And in order to do that, it's important what we talked about, to really, really, really get to know the senses that your body give off, because your body always tells the truth. If it's aligned, if it's not aligned, if it's hurtful, if it's pleasant, if it's a yes, if it's a no, it's all stored in your body. And we really have to get back to that beautiful vessel that we live in and start listening better to it in order to show up more as the man that we are. So that's my final message for you guys.
Beautiful, love it. And I love that about the body, because the body is a tool that, we've been gifted to experience, and our emotions and feelings guide us, into our true authenticity. As you said, we can feel what's right, what's a yes, what's a no, when our heart opens, when our heart closes. So I just love that message, how you said it in a way that men can understand and appreciate. Thank you, Bas.
Thank you, Gemma.
So what a wonderful conversation. So much has come up. I'm truly grateful and very honored to have you on here, Bas. So thank you from my heart to yours for being here. Thank you. And everyone, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll be back in a few days with another episode of Heart Warriors. Stay on if you like. Bye.